Warpugs, I'm gonna tell you a secret. Grandpa Nurgle does not love you. And DystopianChimp is about to reinforce that theory. Guys, of all the Chaos Gods and all their followers, Nurgles always seem the happiest because they have the least amount to care about. Like, what is there possibly to care about when you're literally falling apart and not dying? There's really nothing left for you. You are a rotting pile of nothing. The flies are your friends. I just don't understand how they can be so happy. It's actually kind of disturbing. And Slaaneish's followers, if I was to look at anybody and say they should be kind of happy, it would be Slaaneish's followers because, my god, the amount of shenanigans they get up to is kind of wild. But Nurgle? No. Like, they don't take a bath, ever. They stink. They're covered in flies. They have creatures living inside of them. Do not eat or drink anything while watching this video if you have a weak stomach. I was in the Navy for 6 years. I can handle this. Warpugs. Oh boy, here we go. Papa Nurgle does not love you. Links are going to be in the description below. DystopianChimp. Let's get into this. I think this is the first time I've ever seen anything from him. Let's go.
Nurgle.
Hi.
The Lord of Decay.
Yep.
The Master of Pestilence. The Grandfather of Disease.
Yay.
He is no evil tyrant, no greedy king or jealous god. No, he is, in fact, a paragon of joy and generosity.
He actually is.
He's the one...
Generosity. Look, no.
Only god who truly cares.
No, he doesn't.
Where the galaxy is cruel and indifferent, Nurgle is love. Nurgle is life.
You pulled that out of Shrek is Love, Shrek is Life, and I don't like you for the implications now, sir.
The Imperium, that's just a dying thing wrapped in a cloak of false glory and propaganda, totally ignorant or indifferent to the fears and struggles of its people. The Emperor,
accurate.
He's nothing more than an ancient grey corpse propped up atop a throne of lies.
Accurate.
But Nurgle sees you. He sees all of us. He understands and he empathizes. He cradles those who devote themselves to him in warm, flabby arms swollen with dark fluid and pocked with pimples and sores. Like a father holding a newborn, Nurgle nurtures and protects his followers. He shields them from pain and from despair, from the brutal aspects of existence. Fear, loneliness, anxiety, all these things melt away in his plump, numbing presence. And the gifts. Oh, the gifts. What generosity, what affection is contained in the boils that burst with merry pus.
Man. No.
In the insects that crawl beneath the skin, whose mandibles knit an open hive of living human meat. The gifts of weeping sores, of clouded eyes, of glowing snot, of lumps and bumps, of wounds that rot and seep endlessly and never close, and which only seem to open wider. These are signs of his affection.
Great.
Favors granted with care and consideration. For each maggoty sore, each rot-filled wound or cancerous growth bears the mark of his very own touch, a reminder of his care and of his generosity. And so we must sing his praise.
Is there a return address to send these gifts to?
We must sing his name in feverish worship until our voices become cracked and raw, until we can do nothing more than move our blistered lips and spit foul air from our rotten, fluid-filled lungs. We must lovingly call him Grandfather, as we kneel in the filth of our own waste in absolute joy as living proof of his power and benevolence. But it's all a lie.
Yes.
Nurgle doesn't love you.
True.
And everything I've said before this, nothing but delusion.
Very true.
I wanted to make this video to try and dismantle a widespread misconception The idea that Nurgle is somehow different, more generous, more caring and kind than the other dark gods. But he isn't. He just isn't. He's a manipulative, malicious deity, just like all of the rest of the old four.
Just like any one of the four, they are parasitic organisms that have achieved sentience at best and nothing more. They only exist to propagate their own existence.
Nurgle's love, his so-called benevolence and generosity, is nothing more than sweet venom poured into the ears of the truly desperate.
Yep.
His promises of immortality, of freedom from pain and peace of mind are not acts of mercy, but simply the calculated cruelty of an eternal parasite. To serve Nurgle is to surrender your very self, to trade the struggles of life for the slow, suffocating stagnation of undeath. To understand this, we need look no further than the Death Guard. Once some of the most determined warriors of the Emperor, they are now shambling, rotten corpses.
There you go.
They are incredibly durable and hard to kill, it's true, often requiring 5 times their number to cut one down. And so with this durability, many among the Legion believed themselves superior, blessed. As Laz and Bolt of Fire is absorbed by their decaying flesh and deflected from their rusted armor, as their limbs regrow and reform, and as the breath they exhale melts the faces of their attackers, they
imagine having that kind of breath. Banaka is your worst enemy.
laugh heartily and offer praise to Nurgle for their resilience. But when Nurgle's hold on them is broken, even for a moment, the terrible truth of their existence is made crystal clear. We see this in Plague War, when a null bomb made of powdered blanks detonates and severs Nurgle's influence among the attacking Plague Marines. They see, for the first time in centuries, the disgusting things they have become.
We also see this in the End of the Death, where Nurgle's presence leaves and the Death Guard is just sitting there in utter shock at what they've done to themselves and what they are now.
They see their own stinking intestines hanging from their open bellies. They see the rotting flesh spilling through the cracks of their rusted warplate. The insects swarming and crawling within and without. The bloodshot eyes and the grinning mouths sat within places they should never be. They see the thrashing tentacles, the throbbing growths, and the maggot-ridden sores. And when they see it, when they realize what they have become and what they have lost, they scream in horror.
Yeah.
A similar revelation occurs in Warhawk when the Khan materially kills Mortarion. The surviving Death Guard are disgusted and they realize that they are not blessed, but are instead very much cursed. As is said in Warhawk, once you stripped away the haze of forgetfulness, once you turned the lights on, you could see right through it.
Yep.
This is Nurgle's great.
It might have been in Warhawk. I'm not sure, though. I know an incident like that happened at the siege of the Imperial Palace.
Lie.
It probably did happen in Warhawk. I probably just... Memory, guys. Memory. I'm old and busted.
He does not provide freedom from pain. Instead, he turns his victims into empty things. Things incapable of longing for something better. The difference, maybe the genius of it, is that he rewires their perception. He numbs the instinctive revulsion and despair and replaces it with a sickly, artificial appreciation. Nurgle doesn't end suffering, he drugs you. He pulls wool over your eyes, numbing you and manipulating the mind into a fogged haze of acceptance. He does not offer love, no matter how he postures. His so-called mercy is just the freedom to stop caring, to stop struggling, and to sink deep into the abyss. For those who have felt the touch of depression, the temptation might sound awfully familiar. The voice that whispers in your head, explaining that trying is pointless, that resistance is futile, that failure is a guarantee. He preys upon the broken, the desperate, the vulnerable. Not to save them, as his followers will claim, but to make them his playthings. While Khorne fuels rage and Slaanesh desire, Nurgle exploits the fundamental fear of all life, the ending of it. Even if Nurgle genuinely believes in the righteousness of his actions, and he undoubtedly does if we look at some of the older codexes, it does not absolve him of the monstrous consequences of his deeds. He is not some benevolent savior misunderstood by the unfaithful. He and his followers might truly think his intentions are noble, but intention does not supersede or erase reality, ethics, or basic human morality. While some may well argue that such concepts are subjective, shaped by cultural or philosophical lenses, this subjectivity does not and cannot absolve actions that actively perpetuate suffering, degradation, exploitation, or falsehood. Even if Nurgle operates within his own unknowable and alien framework of reasoning, such a framework does not place him beyond judgment within the moral constructs of those he harms, of humanity. The subjective, fluid nature of ethics and morality is no defense for atrocity or wickedness. It does not excuse or justify the infliction of misery, no matter how high the reasoning claims to be. Those few mortals who survive the torment of his gifts and in their desperation seek mercy in him are also met with no true salvation. Only the spectacle of his fat and diseased hand patting their heads with affection, as though such a trivial act could somehow absolve the suffering he has wrought upon them and countless others. This does not make him merciful.
No.
It makes him the worst kind of tyrant, the worst kind of god, the one who hides his cruelty in the illusion of kindness, offering just enough false comfort to convince his victims that their suffering has meaning or that it is good. The greatest evils are often built on the foundation of perceived good. Few who execute true atrocity ever do so from the belief that they are evil.
Very, very true.
Most are convinced of their own moral justification. Look at some of the dictators from the second millennium on Terra. They didn't set out to be evil. They didn't dare themselves to become some of the most evil figures in history. They believed in the righteousness or necessity of their causes.
Right.
But their belief in their own virtue made their actions no less disgusting, immoral, and wicked, and the same is true of Nurgle. But still, this is the trap that so many fall into. When you call him Papa Nurgle, when you speak fondly of his love and talk about how different he is, you're playing into that same cycle of delusion. You are romanticizing a sickness, glorifying manipulation. It's like Stockholm Syndrome or Munchausen by proxy. Both are psychological traps, and so is the approach of Nurgle. Some might argue that his gifts and mutations reflect the natural cycle of life, death, and rebirth, that Nurgle somehow embodies the circle of life and the true essence of nature. But this is just not true. The so-called life he grants is no life at all, it is simply undeath. And with Nurgle, there is no true death, no release, no return to the earth. There is only rot, only stagnation. And the rebirth he offers, nothing but twisted mutation and corruption. There is no true life with Nurgle, only lies in hollow shells and mockeries of what and who once lived. So let's not distort the reality of Nurgle, a being who is, at his core, a god of despair and apathy. He is a liar no less manipulative than Tzeentch, a killer no less careless than Khorne, a glutton no less hedonistic than Slaanesh. He does not love his followers, he does not make them truly happy or grant them peace, he simply robs them of the ability to think objectively, tricking them and manipulating them into believing that they are blessed, that their afflictions are something to be proud of and something to be shared.
Yay.
They are his playthings and his experiments, tools for his amusement and curiosity, and nothing more. Nurgle does not care about you, and he will work to joyfully grant you his love, whether you like it or not. Nurgle may not be worse than the other Chaos Gods, but he is definitely no better.
Very true.
Anyway, thanks for watching. Dystopian Chimp out.
So this falls in line with something that I've said several times about the Chaos Gods in my lore videos and other things like that. The Chaos Gods, in a nutshell, are nothing more or less than parasites that have gotten out of control, that have really broken through a whole new level. And what I mean by parasites, and what I mean by parasites that have achieved sentience, is the primary reason why it was said in so many of the books and by a number of species that knew chaos very well, that if the Emperor of Mankind were to lose and Horus was to win, chaos would take over and then be wiped out. What they were seeing, what the Chaos Gods truly are nothing more than emotional parasites. They are manifestations of specific sensations, of specific things, emotions, concepts. That is what they are. Slaanesh is all about sensation. That is Slaanesh entirely. Khorne is all about martial prowess. That is his whole ideal. Tzeentch is evolution and change. Nurgle is the cycle of life and death. But more appropriate to say, stagnation. Now, with all that being said, the reason that I agreed with him when he was talking about them being parasites is because that is exactly what they are. If you take a look at, say, any parasite that we have, let's just say a leech. A leech drinks blood, okay? Now, if you were to give this leech, if you were to let this leech and just remove biological constraints to it, and instead of, blood just giving substance, it also gives power. This leech would eventually, if drinking enough blood, become powerful enough to do other things. This is essentially the nature of the Chaos Gods. Say for instance, and I'm just going to throw out a hypothetical, you have the Chaos God of muscle relaxers. Okay, let's just say that. Chaos God of muscle relaxers. This is more taken from the Warhammer Fantasy page book than anything else. Because, quite simply put, in Warhammer Fantasy, there are little demons everywhere. And they do specific things. Now, that's a dumb example. Let me use another one. Let's just use Slaanesh, for example. Let's just use Slaanesh. When someone does something that brings them pleasure, pain, whatever, this is food for Slaanesh. It doesn't matter the severity. It doesn't matter how intense. It doesn't matter anything of that nature. It just, that dopamine hit feeds Slaanesh. Okay? That emotional high or low feeds Slaanesh. Now, here's where it gets critical. The more extreme the sensation, the more extreme the action, the more food is produced for Slaanesh. Now, Slaanesh continues to feed, various things happen, the Eldar in particular. This creature becomes more and more powerful. Eventually it becomes semi-self-aware unto itself and begins being able to actually start to influence things to towards its own, survival and own propagation and its own feeding. Eventually, worship starts, which turns into a literal tidal wave of food. The more powerful a chaos entity gets, the stronger it gets. The more energy it takes in, the better it's able to actually influence the world around it, which is what the Emperor was hoping to cut off with the Webway project, because the Emperor knew if humanity was fundamentally unreliant on the warp to do most of the actions that they needed to do, the Chaos Gods would quite simply put, wither and die. That, well, not technically die, but they would become depowered to the point where they weren't an existential crisis, which is technically what they are right now. Everything that they are is simply put an existential crisis. And the more energy they take in and the more energy they are able to expel, the worse it gets. So that is my TED Talk about the Chaos Gods. They are simply over-bloated parasites that feed off of concepts and emotion. And the more extreme, that's why they would eventually destroy themselves if they didn't have anything holding them back, such as the Imperium. Because Slaanesh does not care to look at one of their followers and say, look, snorting 17 pounds of cocaine while doing all this other kind of crazy stuff in the middle of the orgy is a bad idea. Slaanesh does not want to stop this because it's such an extreme act. It's a lot of food. There is no self-preservation instinct in Slaanesh. Same with Khorne. Khorne would be quite happy if every single planet in the Imperium and every single planet of every species whatsoever erupted in a tide of blood and violence, because it would be intense amounts of food for Khorne. But then immediately after, because Khorne's not sitting there like, okay, let me pull back my influence a little bit. He's just sitting there. The second that it starts heating and he gets more and more powerful, he's just going to fuel it more and more and more until there's nothing left to die. And then Khorne's not getting any energy anymore. And eventually, Khorne, as a concept, begins losing power. That's the easiest way to explain it right there. If Khorne won and the galaxy was bathed in blood, within a few years, Khorne as a concept would be defeated utterly, because there'd be nothing left to die for. There'd be no aspects of martial prowess, there'd be no honor codes, there'd be no warrior culture, there'd be no fighting, there'd be no killing, there'd be no nothing to actually supply Khorne with the energy to continue going. He would simply lose everything. Same with Slaanesh, same with Tzeentch, and the same with Nurgle. It is what it is. It is what it is. Nurgle can turn an entire planet into a swamp that is in a continuous state of decay. But eventually, that swamp dies. And when that swamp dies, and there's no new life coming, it's over. It's more than over. The second the natural life cycle completely ends, that's it for Nurgle. The second that somebody can't feel sensation because they're dead, Slaanesh is gone. And the second nobody tries to change and stop scheming and evolving as a person or a concept or anything like that, the second there's nobody around to do that, Tzeentch is gone. Warpugs, the Chaos Gods, are nothing more than parasites. DystopianChimp's links are going to be in the description down below. Please check him out. This was good. I like this. I'm going to have all my links in the description down below as well. Check me out. Subscribe to me if you haven't already. Join as a member of Patreon for early access. And I'll catch you guys next time. Parasite.